So are you ready to take apart this matrix a little bit more? Tonight we're going to go over the pineal gland, and we're going to take a look at it from a microcosm level and a macrocosm level. And since I've started doing all this stuff, I think one of the main goals that I've had in mind is, as I started looking around, I noticed that we have science on one side, and science doesn't want to believe anything except for the physical. On the other side, we have orthodox religion, and we have many of them, and everybody thinks theirs is the right one. The interpretations get twisted, but when somebody actually does a little bit of research and they start looking at everything, you cannot do anything except for with a little bit of good analysis, come to a realization that there are fundamental truths that exist everywhere. You find that in the Orthodox religions, that although their words specifically may be different, you see that their communication, for the most part, appears to be fundamentally true. There are fundamental truths that are common. For example, you may have two different people tell you the same story. They use different words, but with analysis and with good reasoning, you can tell that they're telling you the same thing. This is exactly what happens in science and all of these Orthodox religions. My goal has truly been something that I feel has been unselfish. It's something that, as I have learned these things, that I'm excited to be able to bring them to everybody else. If for anything, to get people to think a little bit more. There's a lot of people out there that are just insistent on not letting this information get out. I find that kind of sad, a little bit hypocritical at the same time, because these are the same people that talk bad about these secret societies, per se, like the Freemasons and stuff like that. But these are the same people that will do anything possible to keep you from bringing out this information. Why? Because they're a little bit scared of it, because it doesn't exactly meet with what they've been taught. But if they would actually do a little bit of investigation, there are some beautiful truths about this whole universe and about our reality. And there are fundamental truths that they'll just spend a little bit of time investigating, but not everybody has that ability. So you have a lot of people out there that live in fear, and they live based on what somebody has told them in order to control them. But I'm digressing there a little bit. I want to share with you what I have discovered about the pineal gland. We're going to take a look at it microcosmically and macrocosmically. There's something very beautiful about this whole thing. You're looking at a page here. This has got Manly Hall, of course, because when I start digging into the esoteric and I start reading all around, I come back to Manly Hall because he condenses it and puts it into a very easy way to understand things. Now, as far as the history of what I've shown you, what we're going to find is we're going to find that science, in order to understand the universe better, and this is one of my goals, is to help science, they are on kind of the right track. Right here we have an article where it says physicists find evidence that the universe is a giant brain. They're on kind of the right track, but it's just like anybody else who sees something, sees an image or a picture or something like that. They look at it with a very quick glance. They don't look at the details. If science will eventually begin to look at the details behind the structure of what they are hinting to right here. This was posted late 2012. All of the things that they're posting are after the fact of stuff that I've already put out there. Okay, so I already put out information before November 2012 about the brain and the Orion Nebula. This kind of concept has been around for a while, but when we start digging into the details, not just a glance, just an overall look. It's the difference between looking at a picture, glancing at it, and then really looking at it and really looking at the details. And that is where you start gaining a lot of knowledge. But they're on the right track. They just need to eventually come to the realization that man is not this little small thing that they keep projecting all the time. Man is an image of God. Man was made in God's image. In fact, one of the reasons that I've been able to discover so much as I have is from this Gospel of Thomas from the Nag Hammadi Library. These are the secret sayings of Jesus. And these number 3. First of all, it says, and he said, whoever finds the interpretation of these sayings will not experience death. Now, I have not completely interpreted all these, but I find number 3 very interesting because, and I've read this a million times, if those lead you to say to you, see, the kingdom is in the sky, then the birds of the sky will precede you. They say to you, it's in the sea, then the fish will precede you. Rather, the kingdom is inside you and is outside you. When you come to know yourselves, then you will become known. You will realize that as you are the sons of the living Father. This, when you understand this and what it's interpreting, then you understand that what is being communicated here is the same thing that Hermes communicated. As above, so below. As below, so above. If you want to know the universe, look at yourself. And that doesn't mean just the mental part of you, but it also means the physical part of you. Because by looking at the physical, by looking at nature, just like the ancient Egyptians used to do, we can learn about ourselves. And by looking at ourselves, we can learn about the universe. And this is what makes the whole subject of the pineal gland tonight very interesting, because we're going to see what it represents here in just a bit. So it's inside you and outside of you. Well, if we think of this physically, and we take a look at the brain, for example, there is an image of a brain inside us, obviously, and there's also what we see, the same thing in the universe as well. And this concept also goes back to Kabbalah, the Kabbalah text, the Zohar, for example, popped up around the 13th century. However, the concepts that are inside the Kabbalah date all the way back to ancient Egypt, because we can see it in their text, the Pyramid text, the Book of the Dead, and so forth. And we can see specific references to Orion. So, if you guys remember, in late of, November 2011, you can see the dates here, November 28, 2011, November 28, 2011, I've got them all, about a year. In fact, it was actually 1 year exactly, because this came out, well, no, this is November 5th, 2012. But if you notice, I'm showing these vortexes in the center of the Orion Nebula here. And even in my series called Know What Is in Front of Your Face, I also address this also, and I pick this thing apart. Now, why did I go here to do this? Well, I used the collective unconscious because of what was found inside these cathedrals. At that time, I had found 3 cathedrals so far. I had found Karlskirch, I had found the Church of the Jesu, which shows the whole Orion constellation and the Barnard's loop circling into the middle where the Orion Nebula is. And I also saw the one that is in the St. Peter's Cathedra, or the Cathedra of St. Peter, the one inside the Vatican. And in all these cases, you see these angels, and they're circling around this really bright spot in the middle. So, having compared this to the Orion Nebula, and seeing the obvious importance here, I needed to find out what was going on here. Why is it they are showing this area as so important? And that led me to coming out with discovering that there was a vortex in there 1 year before NASA. And NASA said that if it exists, the black hole would reside somewhere between the 4 bright stars which mark the center of the Orion Nebula, exactly where the cathedral art had shown me. So, truth has a way of confirming itself over time. And as this can be no substitute, this can be no better example of confirmed credibility, showing that I knew what I was looking at. It also confirms the credibility. There's something to be said for the phenomena of what is going on in these cathedrals and this various art, because it obviously led me to a truth that was discovered a year later. So, let's go to the next part. The next part about this is the whole idea of the brain. Why does everybody say, you always hear them say, Danny, why do you keep showing brains all the time? You keep showing brains and profiles of brains and things like this. Well, it started once again with the collective unconscious. So up until this point, I had discovered in several cathedrals, or actually many cathedrals and many different pieces of art, that there was this importance around the Orion Nebula. But I came to this one. And in this particular painting, we know from neurosurgeons, that Michelangelo, being the anatomist that he was, painted a brain. This is the standard piece of art that's going around. However, what's wrong with this picture? What's wrong with this picture is that all of the details in the very center of the image have been left out. And because of that, they got the brain wrong, where they should have taken it and flipped it horizontally. And a little bit of extra research into this, one will find that this is the case. Because when we take a look at the actual painting, what we see is that in the very center where they skipped, we see some important clues. First one is the fornix. Fornix located right here, and the second one is the midbrain. And when we do a little bit of investigation on that, we find that that's exactly what he painted. He painted the fornix there, and this area right here, the crease in his clothing, is the same as the midbrain, and they are also located in the same relative locations in the very center. What this basically means is they flipped it the wrong way, because these areas right here represent the spreading of the frontal lobe right here. So we can see that Michelangelo painted a brain, and we also discovered that he painted the Orion Nebula. Now, any good analyst will tell you that if you have a link between two different things, such as this painting right here, which was really the link to begin to really starting exploring the Orion Nebula for what it was. Up here we see the transition to the Orion Nebula, and all this, as you've seen in detail with the woman and everything, she is inside here, the corpus callosum. And so what I've done here for you guys is I have actually labeled all of these areas of the brain, and I'll show you that in a different image here. As we continue, I also want to let you guys know that I have run this by MRI techs and also a neurosurgeon, and their jaws have dropped so far. I've also sent it off to another neurosurgeon for him to look at as well. So as we go through this, let's just take a look at the detail. Instead of looking at it as just an image, let's start digging into the detail and see what we can find out. The way to do this is to break it up mentally in your head into different sections. This is the way anybody in anatomy would do this if they were looking at a part of the brain. Now, all brains are a little bit different, but all surgeons realize that. In order to operate on a brain, they must know the subtle differences between one brain and the next. So this is no different. It's just another version of a brain, so it doesn't have to look exactly like every brain, because not every brain looks exactly alike. However, we can pick out the same pieces. So let's find out what we can look at here. Now, I have blown up two areas down at the bottom, one for the pineal gland area and one for the pituitary area. But let's just work our way around this right here. So, starting down here with the fourth ventricle, that is this dark area that you see right here, and we take a look, and we can see that in the Orion Nebula, that same area is right here. That forms this part right here, which is the whole cerebellum. The next part I want to take a look at is the pons and the midbrain. The midbrain is right here, pons is right under it, and we come over here, and here is our midbrain, and our pons is right here. So then I want to take a look at the optic nerve. The optic nerve is this right here, and the pituitary is right under it. We come over here, this right here is our optic nerve, and this is the pituitary. And this is going to show you detail into this in a second. This area that is inside right here is the septum lucidum. That's the same as this area right here. You have the corpus callosum that runs across the top. That's the same as you see running across the top here. And then we have the pineal body and the splenium. Splenium right here is right here, and the pineal body, if you notice, this dark triangle right here, pineal body is located right here, coming off of the thalamus. So it's right here. And so when we take a look over here, that dark triangle becomes the light triangle, and this area right here is where the pineal gland is located. Now when we blow this stuff up down here and do a magnification, there's our pituitary area compared against the Orion Nebula. The same, you can see that it comes out right here and then goes back across. It does the same right here. So this is your optic nerve, and you can see where the pituitary is located, right under that, just like it is right here. So this is the pituitary. Now when we do a dissection of the pituitary, there is an anterior pituitary and a posterior. And as we can see, this area right here is divided up into two. So as we can see, the detail behind what we're being shown here inside the Orion Nebula contains the whole brain. Down here, here's a comparison between that dark triangular area. Notice the top line that goes across, where the fornix comes down and meets the splenium and then goes through the splenium. The same angle going down this yellow triangle is the same angle that we see right there. And you'll also notice that the pineal body is right here. The pineal body is right here. And then you're going to notice this quadrigeminal lamina right here comes up and curves around like that. And it does the exact same thing right here. And you'll notice that this whole area consists of a triangle slightly tilted. And this whole area right here is a triangle slightly tilted. So as you can see, the pineal body is right here, and when cleaned up it looks like a vortex, and it sits right underneath the trapezium stars, right where NASA said that there was a black hole. And so when we do a little bit of investigation into this, we can see that spiraling vortex right there coming into a larger disk and then down into a cone shape. So we have this huge vortex all the way across. But the area that represents the pineal gland, and you will also notice too in any anatomy that the angle that this pineal gland is located at is also the same angle that it's going to be shown at coming off of the thalamus. So this thing right here is the pineal gland, and as you can see, it also looks like a pine cone as well. Now in order to keep this video from lasting too long, I'm going to split this up into parts. So when I come back next, since we've already established this incredible anatomy that we can see right here, that can be seen down to the smallest details. And what we also, with some insight, have realized as well is that what we see in the human body and what we see in the cosmos is telling us something very, very special about this area right here, which happens to be the pineal gland. It's right in the very center of this triangle, and it represents a vortex. And many of you are probably familiar with the Eye of Providence, or the eye in the triangle. Well, what that represents is it represents the causal nature. It represents the soul, or it represents the infinite, the Ancient of Days, where things come out of. This area right here is the tetragrammaton, which is the first light that comes out of this area. We're going to get into that in the next video, because otherwise this video would last way too long. I wanted to show you the anatomy first, and I wanted to show you how we got here using the collective unconscious, show you the history, show you the credibility that was already gained from previous discoveries, and show you that they continue to come out with science that is supporting what I'm saying. And so in the next video, you're going to see the credibility behind this whole obsession that I have had trying to show you about the brain, because the credibility exists, but I just didn't find it until recently. And for those of you who have not followed me, you will find that the information that I keep putting out continually confirms itself. For those of you who have followed me, you already know this, and I'm going to show you the credibility, the amazing credibility that was discovered once I started digging into the Kabbalah, which, by the way, Christians, even in the Bible, this stuff is communicated. The only difference is that its interpretation was done differently. But you can find that when you look across culture, this same kind of information comes out. What I like about the Kabbalah is the Kabbalah is very, very specific about what I have been showing you regarding this stuff right here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it there, and next video I'll come out with, we're going to get into some very interesting mysteries around what we're seeing right here, and then what we're going to see in Egypt, and then we're going to find out more about the illusion of the matrix that we live in on this physical reality. Guys, take care, and I'll talk to you soon.